Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Business Environmental Program Series. And today we're going to start off with a session on sustainability. And we're going to look at sustainability from the municipal perspective, the state perspective, the community as a community-wide perspective, and then we're going to look at the business end of it. And then we're going to have a little break, and Brian Dunbar and Josie are going to talk about taking it to the next step. So the first half is really how we're doing, what our progress is, what resources are available, and then they're going to take you to the next level. So we're going to start off with Mona Newton, and Mona is from the Governor's Energy Office. She works with the Recharge Colorado. If you haven't been to that website, it is a wealth of information. It helps you maneuver all the rebates that are out there at different levels. Mona, I've known Mona for a couple years now, but I just learned this morning that she's a founder of Resource, which is an amazing nonprofit if you're in the building industry where you can go and get wood and glass. And we have one in Fort Collins north of the city, and it doesn't get enough traffic. So if you haven't been there, go and visit Resource. She also has worked on a community-owned wind farm, a lot of projects on energy efficiency and renewable energy, and she has her academic background from University of Denver Graduate School and from Northwest Oklahoma State University. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Mona.
Good morning, I'm Mona Newton. I'm with the Governor's Energy Office. I want to tell you about Colorado and what we've been doing over the last 3.5 years. We've been really busy at the Governor's Energy Office, and part of that has been due, all of it has really been due to the leadership of the Governor, Governor Ritter. And then really a lot of the communities. I go around to, my region goes from Larimer County down to El Paso County out to Summit. And I'm always using Fort Collins as an example of some really good to showcase some of the programs, climate-wise, the utility. A lot of the efforts that are being done up here are really examples for the entire state. But what we've been trying to do is really promote Colorado as a national model for creating jobs and attracting businesses over the last few years. And in fact, we were able to attract about $458 million in venture capital in 2008. And so we haven't really, that's venture capital. So in the last couple of years, you've probably heard with the ERA dollars, American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, more money has been coming to the state. And Fort Collins certainly is getting its share between smart grid, between a lot of the different grants and loan guarantees that businesses have gotten, that the city has gotten, the county. So that's really been a great boon to the new energy economy. A job study was done, and about 17,000 jobs have been created in the last 4 years. I've been in this industry for a long time, more than probably some of you are old. But anyway, a few years ago, there were 50 companies maybe in the state doing solar. Now there's over 300 just solar integrators, and we have companies like Abound and AVA and that are all over that are starting businesses in Colorado. And it's almost every month we hear of a new one starting up. Vestas now has 4 different operations in the state of Colorado. Siemens is here. A small company, a small vertical axis wind turbine company just went to Louisville. It's called Helix. So we're continually seeing new business coming, and part of it is the policies that have been developed over the years. 57 different pieces of legislation relating to energy efficiency and renewable energy have been passed in the last 4 years. So that really tells you there's a lot of things happening that set a good stage, really set a good foundation for developing energy efficiency and renewable energy businesses in Colorado. RPS, the Renewable Portfolio Standard, was one of those pieces of legislation that was set in motion really in 2004 when Amendment 37 was passed, and that required utilities, not Fort Collins, but other utilities, the smaller utilities jumped on board. It was mainly like Xcel and Black Hills. It required them to get 10% of their renewable energy or their new electricity from renewables by 2020. And then Governor Ritter doubled that to 20% by 2020, and then most recently 30% by 2020. And it looks like it's a very doable goal that we've set. Okay, so what have we done? We've got, we're 6th in solar, 11th in wind, and we're 3rd in geothermal in the country. We're trying to lead on the greening government side. We have our own executive ordinance that was, executive resolution that was passed by the governor. Started a couple years ago and then most recently updated. We've got the new RPS goal. We're focusing on trying to get a trained and well-educated workforce, and I don't need to tell you about educating the workforce. CSU is just such a leader in that arena that it's been really fortuitous. Both CSU, CU are really developing great programs, and then we have a lot of the little smaller community colleges that are jumping on board. Red Rocks, Colorado Mountain College, they're all teaching classes to become energy auditors, learn how to insulate homes. Front Range Community College, right. I mean, all of them are really on board, so that's a great thing. We've been collaborating a lot with a number of the other local agencies as well, the state agencies, and Department of Local Affairs has been a great partner for us the last few years, and we continue to partner with them and hopefully we'll continue to do so in the future. And then we've been working on some grants and some private investment, and I'll pull up our website a little bit because we do have some new grants coming out that we'll be soliciting for in the coming months. So the Governor's Energy Office, there's about 45 of us total, and our office we just feel like we're working as hard as we can, and part of it is to address a number of barriers. And when we started our office, started thinking about what we needed to do, we wanted people to be able to access information, access services, and access capital. And that's that's been the 3 components of our endeavors over the last few years. There's our operating budget for those of you who are interested. A big portion of it goes to weatherization. I don't know if this is got a pointer, but you can see in the purple area, the weatherization is a big portion of it. That was really tripled by the ERA dollars, American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. And so we have about 11 weatherization agencies that are providing services to low-income people, 200% of federal poverty level or lower. And there's probably 100,000 families in Colorado that actually qualify for this. We served 4,000 households last year, and the program's been ongoing for 30 years. And this year already we've served about 6,000 households. We expect to serve 10 by the end of the fiscal year, so we're pretty excited about. And there's just where our money is going. We're putting it into commercial and public sector, greening government, financing, our Colorado Carbon Fund. I'll tell you a little bit about that. Public outreach, that's a big piece. That's our access to information. We're really focusing on that. Rebates, we put about $18, $19 million into rebates, and there's still funding available. People think, oh, I heard the money ran out. That's not the case. There's money available. And then renewable energy rebates. That's a list of our programs. So I'm going to tell you some about the financing. We're really developing that piece because when our funds run out, when the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act dollars run out, we'll still have funding in our office, but not to quite the size that we have now for things like rebates. So we're creating some financing mechanisms that we believe will help sustain some of the efforts in Colorado. Public outreach, we've got our website. We have a call-in center. We've provided some outreach grants to communities to help get the word out. And then we also provide grants for promotions and events. So, for example, if you have an event, we're going to be at the big event this weekend, the Sustainable Living Fair. Well, our Colorado Carbon Fund will have a booth. If you go, you can stop by. And then also we'll be making a short presentation about rebates there too. So helping to sponsor events like that is one thing we do to promote others who are also promoting sustainability. Our financing. So our financing program is pretty interesting in that Brett Johnson, and if some of you heard him speak last week, I apologize, I'm not going to go into the detail he did, but our financing is such that we had set aside $13 million in a loan program. But what we decided to do was actually work with CHAFA. That's a Colorado Association Finance Authority. And they will use our funding to create what's called a loan loss reserve fund. So it'll help buy down interest for those businesses who want to go out and borrow money, either for a business that they're engaging in that might be an ancillary business that supports the wind industry, or a small business that wants to upgrade the energy efficiency of their building. So we'll be offering those loans. That's rolling out right now because money is already set up and ready to go. We have a program called a Main Street program, and the Platte River Power Association has received a grant from our office to administer that. So they'll be kicking off a program to work with small businesses because they'll be working with Fort Collins Utilities, the City of Loveland, Town of Estes Park, and Longmont to work with small businesses and help them help their buildings be more energy efficient, offer rebates, and then offer financing for that program as well. So we want to be able to do that. We've also got a program called Qualified Energy Conservation Bonds, and that has gone out mainly to counties and cities who are upgrading their facilities. It gives them access to capital at a much lower interest rate than they might have gone even with municipal bonds. Municipal bonding can be very low cost money, but this is even lower cost money. And then there's PACE. PACE is a piece of legislation that got passed this year by the legislature. It creates a statewide local improvement district so that counties who want to opt in, and we are hoping that Larimer County will be one of those counties that wants to opt in, will be able to be part of a larger bonding program where residents can finance energy efficiency improvements, and it will be assessed on their property taxes. It will become a property tax assessment. There's been a few hiccups at the federal level, needless to say. We're working through them. There's 25 states that have actually passed a PACE-type financing program, and that's partially why it's hung up at the federal level. Not all of them look like ours. Of course, we really worked very hard with the lending industry to develop a program that would be acceptable to them. So our program is set, it's ready to go. FHFA, the Federal Home Financing Authority, don't really have a problem with ours, but they have a problem with the other some of the other 24 programs. And so that's what's kind of holding things up. But we expect that either legislation will be passed at the federal level or everything will get resolved at the staff level, and we'll be able to move forward with our program. PACE can also be available to the commercial sector in some areas, not under this piece of legislation, but in other counties like Boulder County or Gunnison, Pitkin, some of the other counties that actually passed a ballot initiative. And there will be financing available for them. Boulder County has issued about 38 loans so far under their commercial PACE program. PACE can be a really good boon to the economic system. Boulder County issued their first round of bonds for the residential sector in summer of '09. And $10 million went into that community. That's a lot of money to go into the hands of contractors. And then there were a lot of people who didn't actually use PACE financing for their housing upgrades, for the energy efficiency upgrades of their homes. They just went to one of the workshops and they said, you know, I can insulate my home and I don't need to take out a loan, or I don't need to finance this. I can pay for it either with a HELOC or can pay for it myself. So that was additional money that we haven't been able to capture yet. NREL is doing a study to figure out what the economic development results were in Boulder County. Personally, I talked to contractors and they said, this is the greatest thing that ever, that had come about during the recession to help them out, because they were very busy. It was difficult to get people to come out and insulate your home, even do energy audits. So PACE can be a very good tool to help communities not only increase the bottom line economic development, but really to help people save money on their energy bills. So with our residential sector, I mentioned we put in about $19 million for renewable energy and energy efficiency rebates. We've issued about 30,000 rebates so far, 35,000. So we still have money available for appliance rebates, for energy efficiency rebates. We don't have them available for PV rebates, but we do for solar thermal. So if you're interested in a solar thermal, either for your home or for your business, consider it. It's a great investment. It's a very elegant technology. I believe in it, and I have one on my home, and think they're wonderful. So it's a pretty simple process. You apply online, and you can get your rebate fairly quickly. Some of the measures that we cover under the energy efficiency are for energy audits, insulation and ceiling, appliances, mentioned the solar PV, solar hot water, and also small wind In Larimer County, there are probably some good areas for wind and some not so good areas, but you want to take a look at that. We work with CSU up here. We have an anemometer loan program. And so if you are really interested in having wind at your house, you can go on our website, connect to CSU anemometer loan program and find out, look at the map, see if an anemometer has ever been put up there and the wind measured and get an idea of if it's really windy or not. A lot of people say, oh, it's so windy at my house. And then like Gilpin County, for example, you may know where that is up in Rollinsville or that area. We put up an anemometer at the Justice Center, the CSU extension office up there. And oh, they thought they were going to get class 3, class 4, which is really good wind. And it turned out it was really a class 1 or class 2. So, you know, sometimes you just think the wind blows a lot, but it's good to measure it. It's just like a lot of things. Measurement helps confirm your beliefs. So one of the areas that we've really been working very hard in is performance contracting. It's a tool that helps the public sector, schools, cities, and counties save money on their utility bills in their own buildings. And you finance the measures with the savings on your utility costs. So instead of having a payment that goes to the utility, all goes to the utility company, part of it will continue to go to the utility company, and then part of it goes to pay off the cost of the measures. We've got over 140 participants in the program right now and about $325 million in projects. Actually, probably more in the neighborhood of $400 million in projects because I work with a lot of communities and they're getting into the performance contracting program. It's a great program because we've pre-qualified the ESCOs. We have already pre-developed contracts that are usable by the entity. And then the ESCOs, the energy service companies, they use local contractors. They might be a national contractor in scope like Honeywell or Chevron or McKinstry, that kind of thing. But when they actually go to do the work, they use the local contractors. And that's very important to us because we want the money to go back into the local communities to support that economic development. That's very important. Okay, we have high performance design. Fort Collins is known for high performance design in your school district. And so we've taken a little bit of that model and we've got a couple consultants on board. If a public sector, school, or city is designing a new building, we want to help them make it more energy efficient. We're not going to displace a private contractor, but we're just going to look at it, maybe tweak it, offer some suggestions to make it more energy efficient. The town of Nederland, we worked with them on their wastewater treatment plant last year, and we're able to save them about $1 million in construction and then operating costs. So just providing a little bit of technical assistance can go a long way to help save costs and reduce the cost of construction. So our commercial, that's our Main Street program. I've talked to you about that a little bit already. We've got the grant with the PRPA. We're going to issue another grant very soon for smaller communities to continue the work. We actually started this in a partnership with DOLA in Longmont. We said, you know, we really want to bring in a regional approach as part of this new energy community grant program, and when they applied, they included their downtown. They said, we're going to offer them audits, then we'll offer them a matching grant to upgrade the energy efficiency of their building. And the first year, about 20 buildings, 20 businesses took advantage of the audits. And then they went forward, about 10 of them went forward, took advantage of the matching grant. They've already got a lineup. They've got people backed up in the queue who want the energy audits and then who want to apply for the rebates. So that was a very successful program. We're trying to replicate that. We're working with several different communities in that area. And then we're also going to issue another request for proposal that will be posted on our website very soon. So. Commercial sector. Our industrial challenge program, that's an interesting program because what we've done is we've identified the largest industrial customers around the state, and we've invited them to participate in a program that asks them to set a goal, an energy reduction goal, and we'll help them do that. And again, this is a partnership with the industrial assessment program out of CSU. So we're working with a couple of companies in this area. We're working with Amgen in the Boulder area. We've got ski areas, and they've announced the program. The governor announced the program this summer, and now the assessments are beginning. It's free to the businesses, the industrial customers that are participating. They'll get a list of the measures that they could include and save money on, and then we help them either figure out financing. That's where our financing program can come on board, or obtain any utility rebates that might be available. So it's kind of a fun program, and it's getting got some good, I think, some good PR traction. I was talking with a ski area yesterday. I was in Breckenridge, and they're really excited because not all ski areas have an environmental manager. Some of them are just trying to do that. Many of you are also trying to be a sustainability coordinator in addition to your day job. And so that woman is trying to do that. So she was really excited to learn that she could get some help in developing a plan. So that's good. Colorado Carbon Fund, that's a program that was developed by Susan Innes. She's moved on. We have a new carbon fund manager now. But the program is an idea. We sell local carbon offsets. I know Fort Collins has discussed carbon offsets ad nauseum, and we still get to do that as well with the resident from Fort Collins from time to time. And but we have our local program, and the idea is we offer local carbon offsets. And what we've done so far is partner with the local landfill, and we're buying those offsets from the methane that is being captured from the landfill. We have also used some of the funding. People can donate money to offset your travel, offset your vehicle mileage. I do that. And that money goes for local projects. Solar thermal projects. We're doing one in South Suburban area. We've got a large solar thermal system. The solar thermal is being used to heat the hot water. Something like a large solar thermal system is a great way for carbon offsets. So we've got a couple of those projects we're funding. We'll also be accepting more applications. If you have a project or you know somebody who's got a potential project that might have some carbon offsets for sale, you can go to our website and get linked to the Colorado Carbon Fund, and you can see what you need to do in order to apply for a project. So that's pretty exciting. In fact, we are working with a local company. We have a separate website for that, coloradocarbonfund.org, and a local company right here in Fort Collins is doing all of that promotion and developing the website for that. But we also work with marketing partnerships for communities, and we worked with Fort Collins last year to promote the Colorado Carbon Fund, and that was been pretty successful. So we're hoping to continue in that partnership. So we've also got a license plate that's pretty cool. So if you drive a lot like I do and you want to help offset your mileage, you can buy a license plate. It's an extra $25. And then you also go to the Colorado Carbon Fund and you purchase carbon offsets to offset your mileage. So one of the things that we're working on, we know is infrastructure. Colorado has a lot of abundant resources for renewable energy, and we're trying to really diversify our portfolio. So a couple years ago, we did a report that allowed us to look at the renewable energy resources around the state, and we identified where the best resources were for wind, solar, geothermal, biomass, and small hydro. And recently we did another report. It's called the READY Report, and that looks at the renewable energy development infrastructure. Where do transmission lines get? Those of you who might have been following the news about Maxwell Ranch, for example, that's a wind farm that could potentially be built in a little bit north of Fort Collins, and what it needs is transmission to get from the wind farm to get it onto the line, to get it down to CSU and the other universities or whoever else might be investing in that wind farm. That's a big issue in Colorado, is getting transmission line built. So we've been looking at that. We identified the transmission line that needs to be built. It costs about $1 million a mile. So now you have to figure out what's the financing for that. Easements. It just takes a while to get transmission lines built. But we're working on that so that we can continue developing the renewable energy resources. By 2020, when we have a 30% renewable portfolio standard, we'll need at least another 1,000 megawatts of some kind of renewable energy in order to be able to meet that goal. So we're going to have to build some transmission lines as well. We've also got a new Colorado Utilities Report, and all of these reports, if you're interested in them, are on our website. And that is a report that outlines every utility in the state. There's 57 utilities in the state of Colorado. How many of you knew that? All right, John.
You know, Mona,
another guy.
One of the reports. I'll put it on the back
Great.
table.
I think it's a great report because, you know, City of Loveland, Estes Park, Fort Collins, and then all the gas companies. It's important to know who your utility is, in my opinion, and develop a relationship with them and work with them. So that's really something going on. Greening government. As an effort, and I should have probably started with this as our first slide, as an effort, we've been trying to lead by example. So we, as I mentioned, we've got our executive order that was updated this Earth Day, and it really has set some pretty aggressive goals for us. So this summer we're evaluating where we're at, because we've been working on them for the last couple years, looking at how we're reducing our energy use in state buildings. There's been a big performance contract that's been underway for quite some time now. We're looking at how do we reduce fuel, how do we reduce waste. That's a huge one, divert 75% of our waste. That's a big one. And so, you know, we're working with some of the biggest departments. You think of CDOT, Colorado Department of Transportation, for example. They're in a performance contracting, and if you ever go through I-70, there's some work being done there. The tunnel, they need a big exhaust system in there to exhaust all the carbon dioxide. All those big fans are being replaced. That exhaust system is being upgraded and replaced. That'll be much more energy efficient. Just things like that. The Capitol, for example, that is, it's LEED EB. It's an existing building, LEED certified building, one of the first Capitol in the country that was LEED EB certified, and so we focused on energy efficiency there. And with some of the additional savings, we were able to put a solar system on the Capitol and then also at the governor's mansion. So there's a list of some of the grants that we've got coming up, that we've actually issued and that we still have coming up. Again, the Renewable Energy Development Team is underway. If you have an idea for a project, a wind project, a biomass, some type of renewable energy project, and you've got a really good idea, it's pretty well formulated, but you need some extra technical assistance or financing analysis, we've got what we hope will be some assistance there for renewable energy development. And that project will be issuing a request for applications in September. Oh, that's this month, so that should be coming out. And it'll probably be mid-September, so right now. And it'll be a rolling application that'll go through next year. Well, Energy Star, that's a big effort that we've been involved in. And the reason why I bring it up is Fort Collins, the Northern Colorado group, has had a real active effort there. And we reached, so some of you know, we reached about 32% penetration with Energy Star new homes. So, and we're continuing to focus on Energy Star. That's something that's pretty, home buyers are getting more acquainted with Energy Star, and that's really a good thing. And that's the reason why we focused on Energy Star. There's Green Globes and LEED and all kinds of different programs, but we're focusing on energy. Yes? There's also the... thank you, Energy Star Portfolio Manager. Great little tool to manage your energy costs, or just manage your energy information, really, so it helps you manage your costs and plan for energy efficiency upgrades or renewable energy investments. Thank you. The other piece that I didn't put in is now on the MLS. It just released this week. The MLS is going to start listing things, qualities of a home, like Energy Star rated. It will list various energy efficiency measures that are included in a home. And we'll be providing free training for appraisers and architects and contractors on Energy Star, and also just what does this MLS mean, the MLS listing mean, because it will become more important as time goes on. So. And then there's just this is just a highlight of some of our energy policies. I mentioned HB 1001, that's our portfolio standard. SB 1328, that's the PACE. And then 1065, that's a different utility program. It doesn't affect the city of Fort Collins, but it will require the largest utilities, Excel and Black Hills, to switch over some of their power plants in the metro areas from coal to natural gas. And the reason for that is that Colorado, the Denver Front Range area is not in attainment according to EPA air quality standards. And in order to do that, some measures need to be taken. So by shifting from coal to natural gas, they'll reduce a lot of the pollutants, the NOx, the methane, SOx that are being emitted in the metro area, and that will achieve that attainment. So that's an important one. And then House Bill 1342, that's a community solar gardens bill. That really does affect people who are in the Excel and Black Hills territory again. But it's an interesting bill, and the idea is that people who can't maybe put a solar system on their house, or because they rent, or there's too much shade, or a business who's in that same position, a solar farm or a solar garden could be built off-site, and the utility will be required to net meter it back to their house or their business, and they'll be able to still get the same tax credits, and they'll be able to get the incentives from the utilities. So that legislation is being, it was signed into law, and the implementation rules are under development, and they should be available by the end of the year. That's our planning horizon right now. So that's the website. It's rechargecolorado.com. So one thing I would encourage you to do is sign up for the newsletter, and then you'll get notified. If you're a business that provides a service or as a consultant, you'll be able to, you'll be notified about all of the RFAs, RFPs, DQs, that we issue that request services. You can typically find a number of programs, and you can find the various grants on our website by spending a little time on it. And if not, you can always give me a call, and I'm happy to help you find it too. Does the FHFA have an issue with Colorado's piece of legislation? It really doesn't. And the reason that it doesn't is because in our legislation, House Bill 1328, we had worked with the lending industry, and they said, we can take up to 95% of assessed value. So and it's right in the legislation, it says that between your mortgages and your PACE financing, your total package of borrowing cannot exceed 95% of the assessed value of your house. And so they liked that. We worked with the lending industry to create that situation. So that's what our piece of legislation says. So it keeps somebody from getting underwater, because the FHFA was concerned that if somebody had PACE financing on their house, and say it was a $200,000 house assessed value, or the mortgage was $200,000, and they had to foreclose on it, and then the PACE financing added another $10,000 or $20,000, they were going to be on the hook for that. So that's what really gets them afraid. But if you have a situation where you cannot exceed 95% of your assessed value, you're never going to get in that situation if your house is foreclosed upon. So that's why they're okay with our legislation. So some of the other states may have to tweak their programs so it's more like ours, or there will probably be some kind of federal legislation that will fix the programs, fix the problems with the programs. We've been in touch with Perlmutter and also with Udall. Both of them are on the financing committees at the federal level. So, sure, I'm sorry, we've actually just run out of funding for our PV rebate program. Let me qualify that. We're taking a wait list for PV rebates for residential and commercial. There is, as I understand it, there is still commercial funding available for the commercial sector, but not the residential sector. You can, if you want to, and I think Fort Collins, John, I'm sorry to ask you, are you out of funding? Is Fort Collins out of funding for your PV rebate program? So if somebody wants to put in a residential photovoltaic system on their house, they could get on a wait list, but it's pretty slim that they would actually get a rebate. If a business wants to put a PV system on their business, there's a very good chance you would get a rebate from the Governor's Energy Office. I believe it's about 50%. So it's a pretty good amount. I can't remember the exact budget amount, but there's still some money available. What happened is a lot of people go in, it's just like with the appliances. People go in and they reserve it and they're like, oh, I think I'm going to do it. Oh, I don't think I'm going to do it. And it takes 30 days and actually longer for the PV rebates to expire. For the appliances, it's 30, 40 days, but for the PV, it's 6 months. because we wanted people to reserve it. And then, you know, sometimes it just takes a while to design it, or the equipment, get the permits, yada, 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 get in the queue. And so we wanted to give people an adequate amount of time. So that's why it's just a longer process.
And I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about the science of sustainability, and then also talk about the municipal operations progress and our progress as a community. We have some really great news to share, and so a lot of it comes from the business sector and all the great work ClimateWise does. So why should the municipality or the community care about sustainability? Well, some of the big reasons are the city owns a lot of property, a lot of buildings and a lot of land. We also run the fleet vehicles, such as the transport buses. Some of the stimulus money that Mona mentioned, we spent on getting compressed natural gas buses, which made a huge dent in our energy goals. We're also, as a service provider for electricity and water, we want to be a leader. So we want to show businesses that we are doing our share. And then as a community, whether you believe in climate change or not, one of the big benefits of greenhouse gas reduction is your air quality improves. So in 2009, the reductions we did in greenhouse gases yielded a reduction 12,000 pounds of carbon monoxide, 50,000 pounds of NOx, and 2,000 pounds of VOCs. So these are all the same air pollutants that cause smog, and if you have allergies, exacerbate your allergies. So by doing this greenhouse gas reductions and energy reductions, it has a great health benefit for the community. Personally, everyone has their reason for what they do. I've been in the environmental field for 27 years, and my background is science and law and education. And I sort of wax and wane between how do you create a livable community? Do you regulate it? Do you inspire people? And so at this stage in my life, I'm more into the inspiring people, and that's why when Brian and Josie talk, I always love to listen to them because they're empowering people, and that's what it's about. So in our state, some of the things that are happening because of climate change is shorter and warmer winters, thinner snowpack, and earlier runoff. So if you're in Aspen or Breckenridge, it's obvious how that affects you. But it affects us here in the Front Range also because the earlier runoff, for example, the water is coming down before ranchers and farmers need the water. So what happens is then you have to create storage and you have to create reservoirs, which is very expensive. The other aspect of that is if there's not so much water, it's harder to treat the water and it gets more expensive. So your utility rates are affected. Precipitation has already decreased in our state up to 20%, and then we have the widespread beetle infestation. So last year, this is in 1 year, we lost 3.6 million acres in Colorado and Wyoming, and Larimer County actually had the worst infestation of any county in the state. Which leads to the second part, more wildfires and more severe wildfires. So, you know, we just had the 4 Mile Canyon, we had the Carter Lake fire. And so it's not that climate change is causing the fires, but it is causing the fires to be more severe. There's also the whole increase in severe storms. So I'd feel remiss if I didn't talk about some of the myths that are out there right now. Whenever there's an election year or there's politics going on, you'll see a lot of what is truth. And the media covers climate change, and I don't think they honestly do a fair job. And so this is my 2 minutes of myth busting. So the first one is there's no consensus about climate change. And basically 97% of the climate experts believe that humans are causing global warming or climate change. Is it 100%? No. But you know, I tried to explain this to my son the other day. I said, it's as if your father was sick and you took him to a doctor and the doctor says, there's a 97% chance that your father has cancer. Okay, so say you go to a second doctor, say he's a veteran, and you go to the VA hospital, and the second doctor says, there's a 97% chance your father has cancer. I don't think there's a lot of us that would go back and say, well, there's a 3% chance he doesn't. We don't need to do anything. So, you know, when you hear this thing about the consensus, I think it's really important to think it's hard to get consensus on anything. The other part is about the hurricanes. So there's a lot of media about hurricanes aren't linked to global warming. And the fact is, there's not a good link between the frequency and climate change, but there's a good link between the intensities. So we might be having the same number of hurricanes, but the hurricanes that we're having are more severe. So then the other myth is about the whole coral reef and oceans and acidification. So basically what happens is if there's too much CO2, too much gets dissolved in the ocean and the coral reefs begin to die. 1/4 of all the fish species breed in coral reefs. So even though we're sitting here in Fort Collins, this affects us. And I think coral reefs are a perfect example of how interconnected we are. So the things we do in Fort Collins affect people in Sri Lanka, and the things people do in Sri Lanka affect our wildfires. So I think it's important that everyone takes the impression that they can make a difference and they do impact other people. I think there's value in things to save things just for their intrinsic value. It's hard to put a dollar amount on some things in nature, and in my field, I have to constantly say, what's the financial return on it? When we do a project at the city, we say, okay, is it more prudent to do insulation or PV? I mean, you guys all know the answer to that. But it's always looking on your return on investment, and sometimes that doesn't fit. Like, I don't think when they did the civil rights, no one said, what's the financial return on integrating our schools? And I think at some point we have to say, we do things for financial reasons, but we also do them because they're the right thing to do. And we are doing the right thing. So Fort Collins is a leader in the state, and they're a leader in the nation. So these are some of our statistics. I'm sorry for all the numbers, but some people like to know all the numbers. And we have to measure things. And so in 2009, this is how much we emitted in metric tons of carbon. And so you can see, per person, we're at 19 metric tons. So we're below the US average, we're below the state average. But compared to the rest of the world's at 14 metric tons. We're at 19. But in our city, we dropped 3%. And for those of you that don't follow the science, 3% might be like, but most cities are going straight up. Very few are flat, and even fewer are going down. I've been trying to track, and a lot of cities don't track it, so it's not like we can say, okay, how do we compare to Aspen? How do we compare to Chicago? Because a lot of cities aren't doing the measurement yet. But you know, I just read Flagstaff. I basically read sustainability reports. So Flagstaff, which is considered a very green city, they went up 21% last year. So going down 3% is incredible. And here's some of the community highlights. So this is how we get there. So our waste diversion increased by 38%. So if you don't know that connection, basically trash produces methane. It's a very toxic greenhouse gas. So when you recycle more and your diversion is better, you're doing a lot for climate change. Our Van Go rides have increased by 53%. Our ridership is up from 28%. And we were voted the third greenest mid-sized city for the second year in a row. The citizens and business, mostly climate-wise partners, avoided almost 28,000 metric tons of CO2. We have 6% of our electricity coming from renewable energy, and PRPA is power mix includes 90% hydroelectric. And that's something that you don't read about a lot. So switching gears a little to the city itself. So the city, again, we're a huge landlord. We use a lot of energy. It takes a tremendous amount of energy to treat your water and get your water to your house and run the street lights and traffic lights and, of course, the electricity. So the municipal operations went down by 4%. And here's what that is equivalent to, because I know sometimes when you see the numbers, it's kind of hard to imagine what these metric tons look like. So I think the best one is this one at the bottom. So our emission reduction was was the equivalent to having about 5,000 gorillas in the room. So that's a lot of weight. Besides, it's not all about carbon, it's not all about financial return. Some of it is just about making the city livable. So these are some of the other great statistics. We have 44 parks, we have 25 miles of trails, we have 18 U.S. Green Building Council certified buildings. I have a list of them, so say you're going to build a building, if you want to go and tour some of those buildings, and just, most of the people that build those buildings learn a few things in the process, and most of them are willing to share that information. So it's really, you know, behooves you to go and take a tour of one of the buildings. 6% of our commuters use public transportation and 5% carpool. So of course those are areas we could certainly work on. Recycling, again, the community, I was talking about the community-wide diversion is 38%. The city itself has a very strong recycling program. We recycled 212 tons last year. We also stopped bringing large diameter trees to the landfill. We were taking up a lot of landfill space, so now what we do is we got a grant and we rent a chipper, and all those chips are at Rivendell, the drop-off center, or Garden at Spring Creek. So if you're ever landscaping your house, they're free. They're available most of the year, but if you want to check before you go, Tim Buchanan's our forester, and he knows when they're not full. But I've gone a few times this year, and they're always full. Back to the finance. So a lot of these projects did have a great return on investment, but I was asked to sort of categorize not all the sustainability projects, but look through a list of our sustainability projects that we did at the city. And these are some of the annual savings. This is from 2009. Some of these projects were started before 2009, but one of the best ones is our asphalt, concrete, and toilet recycling. So out on Hoffman Mill, if you've ever been out to Nick's, they basically take all the concrete and asphalt and all the toilets. If there's a great toilet rebate right now that the city has, that if you get a WaterSense toilet, you get $35. If you recycle it at Hoffman Mill, you get another $15. And so basically what happens is all the sidewalk or road fill that gets dug up, say there's a water main break, we recycle all the metal, and then that concrete we use over. And it's really important to recycle concrete because it's got a 1-to-1 ratio of greenhouse gas emissions. So that one, you could see the dollar savings. We also did an energy challenge, which was, again, just an educational campaign with our employees, and Deb Harris was one of the superheroes on that one, and it was just going to different office buildings and helping people and educating people. Our metal recycling was almost $70,000, and that was, you know, going beyond just the cans and saying to the, you know, looking at your operations and saying, what happens when there's a water main break? Do we recycle our pipes? And just going to different segments of your business and looking at what they throw away. And these other ones are mostly lighting retrofits. I won't go through them all, and load shedding to manage your energy, especially during peak demand time. And then this is what's happening now. So in 2010, Mona mentioned there was all that stimulus money. And so the city got $1.3 million in stimulus funds. And we came up with, I think, about 13 projects. And so these are some of the projects we did. One was these big belly solar compactors. And if you haven't seen them, they look like a regular garbage can, but basically they have a little solar panel on the top and it compresses all the garbage. So instead of going, the guys were going, especially to Oak Street Plaza every day to pick up trash, they just go once a week now. So what it does really is cuts down on the transportation to go and pick up trash. We're working on some PV. We put a PV system in at 215 North Mason, and we're going to put another one in at North Azalon. And then we're doing server virtualization. So that's actually a good return on your investment if you haven't done virtualization in your business. And then to some of the ones, when I said it's not always about carbon, these are some of the projects that people debated at the city. But I think these were some of the projects that actually make the city more livable, get people out of their cars. And so what we're going to do is improve some bike lanes on Mountain Avenue. We're going to paint bike boxes. And if you haven't seen a bike box, they have them in Oregon and a lot of the big biking cities. And they're basically for safety of the people on bikes. It's like just a little square so the bike knows where their room is and the car doesn't get too close.
Well, I'm Kathy Collier. I'm the program coordinator for the ClimateWise program. And the ClimateWise program, I just wanted to touch on. I really wanted to have some case study highlights about some of the projects that are really helping reduce greenhouse gas emissions here in town. And of course, the air doesn't just sit over Fort Collins. This helps everybody. And last week we had Stephen Saunders talk from the Rocky Mountain Climate Organization at the ClimateWise Fall Fair, and he said, "You are all heroes," and he considers everybody in this room heroes, and in essence, really pioneers in this effort. So definitely you should give yourselves an applause. So give yourselves an applause. Very quickly, ClimateWise, it was very forward-thinking of city staff and city council to start the program in 2000. We've been celebrating the successes of our ClimateWise business partners for a decade now. It's just amazing that it's gone that long. I'm excited, and it's just continuing to grow. The program is free and voluntary, and in essence, we're leveraging your tax dollars by utilizing some of the other departments' expertise at the City of Fort Collins, as well as the North Front Range Metropolitan Planning Organization. We have folks who are on call from Fort Collins Utilities, our transportation department, as well as the Front Range MPO. They're the regional carpooling and van pooling experts. We have Natural Resources Department. Rosemarie helps out quite a bit in terms of waste reduction. So it's a wonderful group of experts here locally. And we, in essence, promote reductions in energy, water, transportation, and waste, and also work on employee engagement and other customized gaps and areas in terms of environmental sustainability. The program, when a business joins ClimateWise, we schedule a free technical assessment on the business's operations and have our experts come out and review the operations, and then we give the business owners what is called a recommendations report. And that is a report that is voluntary and it is prioritized, and as much as we can, we put a return on investment to that. And it's in essence a list of projects that the businesses can move forward on to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We also offer ongoing technical assistance for businesses anytime if they have any project implementation questions in any of the areas. The more a business does in the ClimateWise program, the more public recognition and advertising they receive. So we, in essence, have a tiered performance system of bronze through platinum, and the more a business moves up those levels and the more they do, the more recognition. We have peer networking opportunities. We have tools and resources for businesses with carbon quantification. We have what was called the greenhouse gas baseline tool that we request businesses use at a gold level. The business can actually see how much carbon they're emitting, and this tool is updated annually. And we have many other areas that we support businesses on, such as cost savings estimates and actuals, etc. We're at 230 business partners and growing. We have in our database, it's getting closer to 1,000 efficiency projects in the database. And again, this ranges from reusing dishes and not using plastic to solar PV. So it just is a wide variety of projects. And I wanted to also mention that the cumulative savings is enormous. All of these small projects add up to some big savings. So the gross savings for the first 9 years of the partners in the ClimateWise program is more than $33 million. Just $8.4 million in 2009 alone. So all of these projects add up. in terms of carbon and cost savings. So I wanted just to briefly showcase a few partner examples, and then I'm going to have two people come up and talk about their case studies just for 5 minutes. But these are some typical projects that businesses have taken to the nth degree, but also some kind of exciting, innovative cutting-edge projects as well. So first and foremost, we have Newmark Mural. They own the property at Horsetooth and College, and they were one of the first commercial entities in Fort Collins to do waste diversion, and they saved. They deconstructed the old Nate's building. I don't know how many of you remember that, and now there's a Chick-fil-A building there. But they had saved more than 82,000 gallons of water from the redesign and so forth. And they also diverted 54% of their materials and recycled 163 tons of concrete. And typically all of this goes into the landfill. And they could have diverted more, but they had found when digging up this building, there was a vapor barrier, and they could not recycle some of that foundation material, but they could have been in the 80 percentile for diversion. Coopersmiths, this is not a typical result of an assessment where experts go in and take a look at their operations. Coopersmiths, they said, oh my gosh, we have a leak in the kitchen. And they didn't realize that, and the experts from Fort Collins Utilities brought that to their attention, and they were able to save more than 3 million gallons of water last year. So this is kind of an atypical result for a typical assessment that we conduct on a business. We have a lighting project at Fort Collins Club. We're seeing more and more businesses take that antiquated lighting and using the rebates from Fort Collins Utilities and changing those out. But Fort Collins Club really went in and they're saving more than $3,500 a month on their utility bills. So that was exciting to see. And lastly, Drohoda. We always ask people, we state in our recommendations report, try and reduce waste. Look at your copy machine and the amount of emails folks are printing. You can duplicate, you can double side, duplex, etc. But Drohoda had taken that to the next step where during 2008 they had requested that they had requested of their employees and engaged their employees to reduce their paper use by 50%. And then during 2009, they reduced it by 85% and saved $68,000. So those are some really exciting projects. We're going to have 4 quick case studies today. I'm going to go over Walmart, and we have Corey Hutchinson from AECom will come up after I speak. We also have Elizabeth Mosier from the Brendel Group, who will talk about their Zero Waste initiative. And Brendel Group is not a ClimateWise partner, but I have to say they've been a consultant helping ClimateWise for a decade. And lastly, the U.S. Forest Service. Wendy actually is going to be here for the U.S. Forest Service and talk about how they're engaging their employees. And they started a Green Team blog, and they're really connecting with their employees. And this is kind of an interesting way that they're going about this. So first, just quickly on a grand scale for Walmart Supercenter, they had joined ClimateWise, I believe, in early 2008. And before their full recycling efforts, they had cardboard back there. And you'll notice along the left-hand side, there are just kind of pallets of cardboard sitting out there. But just during the first 3 months of 2008, they were able to divert 30 tons of organics, of food, plants, wood. 13 tons eventually were mulched and composted. They're working with the Larimer County Food Bank to give pre-packaged material, food to them. They have commingled containers, office paper, steel. All of those broken shopping carts were going into the landfill. So now they're recycling the carts and reusing and et cetera. So it's really exciting to see. Just briefly, they cut their trash hauling costs in half, saving over $20,000. They were able to pull off a large roll-off that they were using for trash, so they no longer have to use that. They're donating nearly 90,000 pounds of food to the food bank. They're working with local charities. They're giving, some people will not purchase a bag of dog food that has a small puncture hole in it. Well, they're giving that to the Larimer County Humane Society. That's not going to the landfill. So these are some really exciting projects that really are saving greenhouse gas emissions and helping the community. And as Rosemarie mentioned, helping the quality of life of Fort Collins as well. So I'm going to have Corey Hutchinson from AE come up and give a demonstration of their Bebop database, bike, bus, or pool, is that right? And come on up, I'll have you talk really quick.
So as Kathy mentioned, my name is Corey Hutchinson. I'm an engineer with AECOM here in town. Our office here in town focuses on environmental consulting and engineering, and Kathy asked if I would come in and speak about our annual Bebop program. So Bebop stands for Bike, Bus, or Pool, and basically it's a program that we've set up to encourage employees to use alternative modes of transportation. And we actually have a database that we provide employees to track their miles and trips using alternative transportation. As a little bit of background, the program was started in 2005 at our Fort Collins RETEC office by Ricka Bothan and the Green Team. Since then, RETEC was bought out by Ensor Corporation, so we merged our 50 employees with their 100 employees into a common office, and then subsequently we were bought out by AECOM. But with all of the transitioning to different companies and name changes, we've maintained our ClimateWise membership as well as our Bebop program. So when it first started, the program typically went from the beginning of June to the beginning of July, but we now hold the database system from June through mid-September. So the whole point of the program is to encourage employees to get from here to there using any form of transportation other than just you and your vehicle. This includes alternative motorized transportation, including carpooling or the bus, or if you're out on business or vacation and taking the train to get from here to there, you can count your miles and trips for that. And it of course includes man-powered transportation, including walking, biking, running, or any sort of creative form that you can come up with. So really we encourage everybody to do it, whether it's for work or just in your everyday life. We've always had several different categories that we track miles, and these include human-powered miles, so you're biking, running, walking. Trips, so when we track our miles in the database, you enter your trips, either it was one way or round trip, and if it happened to be your work commute, then the database automatically counts your trips as double. And of course, total miles, which would be any human-powered miles or carpooling or taking the bus. When it was first started, RETEC was approximately 500 employees in 10 to 15 offices across the US. So just to kind of add fuel to the fire, to get everybody into it, they offered kind of a grand prize to the office with the most cumulative points. But since we're now about 4,500 employees just in the environmental sector, we keep it to Fort Collins. And we've turned the office competition into a voluntary team competition. So if you can get 2 other people who are willing to be on your team, then you can compete in the team competition. We like to keep things fun, so we don't have a whole list of rules, but we do have some common sense rules, including recreational miles. So if you get home from work and go on a 20-mile bike ride, you can't count those miles towards your Bebop points. Or typical trips, most couples aren't going to get in separate cars at their house and say, hey, see you at the restaurant. So if you are driving someplace with your spouse, you can't count those miles, but if you pick up friends on your way to dinner, you're more than welcome to. And in the past, we have offered incentives. Last year, I think we had $75 gift certificates for all of the individual winners in the different categories. And then we had a pool of money to the winning team, which they generously contributed for a pizza party for the entire office. So, and really what we find, we don't really need incentives to encourage people to take alternative modes of transportation. A lot of people have their own little friendly competitions within the office, which are more for bragging rights. And I think people like to just also see, hey, how's our office doing in terms of using alternative modes? Because it kind of turns an idea into something a little bit more tangible. So we don't have a Bebop police at the office that comes around and asks, hey, how'd you get to work today? Or did you ride your bike downtown last night? It's all voluntary. We actually have some dark horses that don't track their miles, and they could probably win all of the competitions. So it's completely voluntary, but here is a screen from our main screen of the Bebop score tracker system, which is an Access database that we house on our main server at work. So any employee can get on, and on the main screen you have a couple of different options. The first one being to enter your points. And you can do this whenever you see fit. You can hoard your points for a whole month, and then at the end of the month get on and enter all of them. So this is an example of the trip data enter screen. So basically you have the option of mode of transportation, and I should point out too that there might be human-powered or non-human-powered options that aren't listed on here. We also offer points and miles for people that may live in Denver or Longmont and commute maybe once or twice a week. That counts. So basically, in entering your trip data, it's really easy. You just enter the mode of transportation, the date, the trips, whether it was one-way or round trip, your total miles, and then yes or no if it was your work commute. Because as I mentioned, if it's your work commute, to encourage people to really do it, as employees, you get your trips doubled if it is your work commute. So I just put this together yesterday. It's all made up, but basically as you go through the Bebop program throughout the months that we offer the tracking system, you can look at your employee data. So it shows you every entry that you've had over the tracking period. So for instance, yeah, I rode my bicycle to work. It was a work commute, and actually telecommute should be as well. But just different instances, a lot of people will track their miles. Hey, I had to go out of town for work, so I took the super shuttle. That counts as a trip and, of course, all of your miles. So, and then for those people that get confused, oh, wait, how do I count a trip, or how do I get bonus points? There's a little option where if you don't want to go talk to somebody about it, you can simply click on the option and read up about it. And then back to the main screen, we can also generate reports. And actually, the people that kind of charge the Bebop system will typically generate PDF reports for the entire office and send them out via email, probably once every couple weeks, just kind of as a reminder, hey, are you participating in Bebop, or look how everybody's doing. So you can actually generate several different reports. You can generate reports for yourself, or if you want to check up on your competition, you can choose their name as well. But you can generate several reports, and basically it's by category, so by mileage, trips, or human-powered miles. And so just to finish this, to show you, whatever you choose, it will generate a PDF report. And this one shows the individual totals, so top trips. So this would include any man-powered miles or alternative motorized miles. This one shows the individual totals, top miles for everybody. So I know that the fourth person down the list here does a lot of telecommuting. So he has few trips, but a lot of miles. What's even more impressive is the person that's at the top right now, and this is granted from 2009, I know that probably 99% of those miles are man-powered miles. So he's doing pretty well versus people who are getting 120 days for commuting, or 120 miles per day for commuting. And then lastly, individual scores. So well, I don't think this is the last one, but you can kind of look at how's everybody in the office doing, who's winning, who's at the bottom. And of course, there's some friendly jokes back and forth about maybe how bad somebody's doing or how well somebody's doing, but it's all in good fun. And lastly, if you just want to check yourself, this isn't me obviously, but you can just print a report showing all of your entries for the Bebop session. If you want to take it home and put it on your refrigerator, you certainly can. But at the end, we will then award the prizes for all of the category winners, and hopefully the winning team will provide a pizza party again this year. But that concludes my presentation if anyone has any questions.
Good morning. My name is Wendy Soror, and I am part of the ClimateWise staff. And I am going to go over real quickly the USDA's, one of their new websites that they just rolled out, I believe last Monday, for their, as Kathy mentioned earlier, it's, they have a long name, but it's the USDA Natural Resource Research Center, Building A. And part of their issue, Matt Oberly is part of their green team. Part of their issue is getting the word out to the rest of the USDA buildings and letting them know what is going on and what's available in Fort Collins and some of the things that their green team is doing. And so they looked into this website, and it's actually being hosted by WordPress. It's wordpress.com, and if you're not familiar with it, it's a free program offered online, and I believe there's no coding is what Matt was saying, so there's no coding involved. It's pretty easy to use. And it's meant to be an interactive website for all of their members to participate in. And so their hope is to provide communication for the USDA within the buildings. But basically, on this website, you can kind of tell they have some information just basically on what this website is about. There's a welcome page, and then if you scroll down, it'll show you some of the things that are happening in Fort Collins. So the Climate-Wise Fall Fair, which was last week. There's the 2010 Harvest Festival, and of course the Sustainable Living Fair. I think one of the challenges that we see with our partners is getting the word out within their organization, whether they're a small company or whether they're large like the USDA. I think that's one of the biggest challenges is getting that word out. Hey, this is what we would like to do this year as far as sustainable practices, and then sharing that with the rest of the organization. A lot of times we'll meet people who are part of Climate-Wise or part of a Climate-Wise business, but they don't realize that they're even a partner. So I think this is a really great tool, and I guess we'll find out more information about how it's working at the end of this year. But if anyone is interested in finding out more about how to set something up within their office, similar to this, you can contact me and I can give you Matt's information, and we can connect you and help you get started. Even if you're not a Climate-Wise partner, we're still happy to help you with that.
All right, well, good morning, everybody. My name is Elizabeth Mosier, and I am with the Brendel Group, and I am here to talk to you about our zero waste goals. In 2005, the Brendel Group wrote our sustainability management system, and part of that was a goal to reach in 2010 of zero waste. And so this year is 2010, and we just reached it. And what that means is that we have 90% diversion of all of our waste, and we are now certified with the Zero Waste International Alliance. And the website is up there if you'd like to learn more about them. We've actually submitted our certification paperwork, and I'm actually still waiting to hear back from them, and we followed up. But either way, we've reached our 90% diversion, and we've been tracking that all along. And so here's a graph of all of our diversion since 2006. That top bar is 2006, 2007, 8, 9, and then this bottom one is when we reach 90% diversion. And you'll see that we started tracking in 2006, and we were moving along, and then in 2007, I believe that's the year we actually moved out of a basement office in Judy's house, actually, to our to our main office where we are now. And then it took us a little while to get back up. And then last year in 2009, we were looking at all of our trash cans, and they were seeming really empty, and we couldn't figure out why we weren't hitting our 90% diversion rate, which was our goal. And so the way we had been tracking this was we had worked with our custodial service to weigh our trash, and then we were weighing our own recycling and compost. And so we decided to do a trash audit, basically, and we were weighing our trash to see if we were getting the same numbers as our custodial staff. And it turns out that we don't think that they were necessarily weighing it, but kind of guesstimating. And so they were saying that we had significantly more trash than it turns out that we did have. And so when we started weighing it ourselves, we found that that was pushing us up over the edge of 90%. So that was a nice realization. Usually you realize things are going the wrong way. But in our case, it was going all right. So how did we get there? What do? We do a lot of the regular things. It's just that I think we're tracking it. And so we recycle all the regular things: cardboard, magazines, newspapers, paper, aluminum, plastic, glass. And then the other, the next step things I would consider your plastic bags, batteries, and ink cartridges, for instance. And if you have any questions about where a lot of those things can be recycled, I know that there's a great site on the Fort Collins website as well. And the CHARM facility out of Boulder, it's the Center for Hard to Recycle Materials, also takes a lot of crazy stuff that nobody ever wants to take, including block styrofoam and some other varieties of plastics as well. And so sometimes, when we have a huge load and somebody's going down to Boulder, we'll send it along with them to recycle some of those other harder to recycle materials. And then we also reuse a lot of things as well within our office to help. This doesn't really help our diversion rate because we're not recycling it or getting rid of it. It's just a general way of reusing stuff. And so we print double-sided. That's a big stack of paper over there. So we print double-sided and use a lot of scrap paper. These are towels or napkins, and we all have monogrammed towels that we use, and we have cloth napkins, and then we use reusable dishes. And we reuse any other office supplies we can, like folders and hanging files and things like that. And we use rechargeable batteries. And we're always on the lookout for used furniture or making sure that furniture we no longer need finds a good, useful home again. And then we also do a lot of composting. We do all the kitchen scraps and coffee grinds. And then takeout boxes as well. And that was an interesting story because when we were doing our trash audit, before we did our trash audit, and we were just kind of trying to figure out what was in our trash and what could we reduce. A lot of it turned out to be food boxes, takeout boxes. And so kind of as a staff, we went through and looked at all the different places where you can get compostable boxes. And so we start going to those restaurants more and encouraging those, and also asking at restaurants and making sure that we get the compostable boxes. And right now at our current building, I get to take all this stuff home. And so, but at our new building, we're going to have our own composting bin there, which I'm personally very excited about. And so, so that's a lot of what we compost, whatever we can. And then, so we've been talking about diversion at our new building. And so is that going to be foosball and bicycling? Probably. But really, it's going to be a lot of these kinds of things. Because what we're doing is we're doing a major renovation and remodel of the building at 212 Mulberry, which is this building here. I don't know if you recognize it by seeing it, but that's the one we're working on. And there's a little tiny house just next door to it that's being deconstructed as well. And so as a part of that, we are pursuing LEED certification, and we're pursuing LEED credit points for our diversion rates. And so we're recycling all the metal that's taken out and the clean wood, and any long pieces of the painted wood as well. A lot of that stuff is going to be reused in the new building. Other parts of it, like a lot of these fixtures from the old house, this is actually a resource, but fixtures and doors and hardware and things like that that we're not able to reuse are going to resource or other places that, that can use them. And then we're also using the stones from the foundation of the little house in our within the landscaping of the new building. And then we also had a big elm that was on the esplanade, that little area between the street and the sidewalk. And it was diseased and it was going to have to come down anyway. And so we used the bole or the trunk of the tree, and it was milled up, and we're going to be using it as the sills in the window sills in the new building. So that's kind of a fun use for some of that stuff. And so any of the other organic stuff, is going to be chopped up and put into the landscaping as well. And so that's how we're reaching a lot of our diversion rates for our new building and our new construction. So obviously in our new building, we'll be taking a lot of our recycling and reusing and composting to the new building and hope that we will be able to keep up our 90% diversion even at our new spot.
I'm going to just briefly introduce our next speakers. Brian Dunbar is the director of the Institute for Built Environment for Colorado State University. He's a professor of construction management. He holds 2 degrees in architecture and in U.S. Green Building, and is a U.S. Green Building Council lead accredited professional. And Brian teaches everywhere, even in the U.S. Virgin Islands, so life must be rough. It is really rough, but his research and teaching focuses on, and project work focuses on environmentally sustainable design and construction materials, methods, and systems. And he coordinates the graduate emphasis in sustainable building at CSU also. And Josie Plout, who was with us last week. She's Director of Projects for the Institute for the Built Environment. She has a degree in business sustainability as well as a master's of construction management with an emphasis in sustainable building at CSU. She's worked in the private, nonprofit, and government sectors to facilitate and coordinate green building projects, and is an experienced instructor, lecturer, and workshop facilitator. She's also a lead accredited professional as well. Today, Brian and Josie will deliver a thought-provoking and an engaging session to focus on the topic of regenerative design and placemaking. After a short presentation, participants here will work together to discover how much social and environmental good they can envision for the redevelopment of a local alley and parking lot. Design professionals, business members, and community members will all be able to learn and contribute. So have some fun, expand your thinking, and let's get started. Thank you.
So with this last hour, what Josie and I intend to do is talk to you about what does it mean to go beyond sustainability and sustainable building, and then engage you in some group exercise where we together brainstorm some ideas related to sustainability. So when we talk about bringing new life to green, maybe we got a friend that's going to help us. We say it's not easy being green. Well, is it easy to go beyond green? Maybe so. Maybe it's not as hard as we think it is. So from the Institute for the Built Environment, we use this graphic that we created to talk about what is a sustainable built environment. Within there you see the triple bottom line, and you also see some major constructs about what a sustainable built environment would be. We also feel like this helps propel us into the thought of what regeneration could be and what that means. So you know what green buildings are and look like because we have many examples in the Fort Collins and Northern Colorado area. And as has been mentioned today, the Poudre School District has been a leader. The City of Fort Collins has also been a leader. The Colorado State University, New Belgium Brewing, many other groups have been leaders in Northern Colorado. We're talking about energy savings and water savings and high performance. I like to use that word. It's a high-performing built environment, but also creates high-performing people in those built environments when they're done well. And then it leads to reduction in construction waste and so many other things. The premise of green building has been, how can we leave less of a footprint on the natural environment? And while that's really important and good, we want us to think beyond that. And so I had the opportunity to hear from someone I think a lot of, and it's, as you can see, Krishna Duplessis from South Africa. Josie has also had a chance to hear Krishna talk at another conference. Now, what we have in front of you and what you're trying to digest as I talk and digest might be an interesting word when we talk about cannibalism. what is she trying to say? Actually, what is she saying that you're trying to digest right now? She's saying we haven't gone far enough. And we put this in a bold way in front of you to try to say, okay, we're doing some great things. In Northern Colorado, we're doing some great things. At Colorado State, we're doing some great things. But maybe what we're doing isn't great enough. Maybe those steps, while they're important, aren't far-reaching enough, and maybe we need to reach farther. And so at the university, we're trying to envision how can we reach farther. And so if you look at a graph and a graphic that we've come up with, and there are other colleagues around the country and the planet that are thinking in a similar way, that maybe sustainability, which we see in the middle, to keep from failing or to maintain, isn't reaching far enough. Maybe we could reach into the concept of giving new life or regeneration and restoration, move us up into those higher systems. And so our premise is that maybe today's green building is doing a lot better than conventional buildings and not as degenerative, but how can we move into that next realm of regenerative? And so another person that we look at for his vision is William McDonough. And as you read McDonough's quote, he used to say, maybe our buildings could be more like trees. And I like how he's expanded his thinking. Maybe our buildings could be like fruit trees. And then you read about the helping the soil and the creation of oxygen and the setting of shelter and then the giving of fruit. And what comes out of that fruit, we don't think of that as waste, right? It's nutrients. And so could our buildings have more of that whole systems approach to really helping the natural environment, and maybe not just helping our species, and maybe not just our species today? We start out with that thought that a tree maybe is a good vision for us of being sustainable, but stand back from a tree, or actually stand back from this photograph. What's wrong with this picture? Is this sustainable? What do you think? What's missing? Okay, good. Yeah, so we have a whole root structure, and that root structure is vital in that system. We're not seeing the whole system. What else is missing? Okay, yeah, so the air around it, the oxygen and the other chemicals in the atmosphere around it are missing. Anything else? Yeah, there's got to be some other environment around there. There has to be some moisture. There has to be some interplay of a relationship. So we can't think of sustainability, or especially regeneration, as an isolated event. It has to be part of a system, and that's really what we're missing there. So if we think about it, let's make sure that we are promoting sustainability and regeneration and thinking about all those connections that John Muir and others have told us to think about. So if we throw the question out to you, what would it mean to go beyond green? What kinds of thoughts come out to you when you say, yeah, let's go beyond green? We like the color green. It represents some good, healthy, refreshing thoughts, but do you have any, what kind of ideas help us go beyond green or beyond sustainable? Don't just try to sustain the soil, but instead actually create good soil, beneficial soil. Good example. What else? Let's think beyond conservation. Let's go into what would be regenerative, what would be giving life, what would be creating something that has health and life as part of it. Oh, good. So a thought about future generations and how do we nurture those generations. You know, sustainability has helped us think about future generations and says, let's not cause harm to those future generations, but how about nurturing future generations? That certainly goes beyond. Good thought. What else? Yeah, so Stacy says not just a space that is good for people, but actually nurtures or inspires people to want to do better than they have done. So taking the idea of a built environment and making it for high-performing people. Great. What else? Good. So another human social connection that John's coming up with is a place, an environment can teach us today and for future generations, teach us about soil and energy and so many other components. And a place that actually generates more energy than it uses, rather than just thinking about how it can use less energy. We could also go into water, we could go into waste, and think about ways that we could save over time or actually create healthier water than what we started with, things like that.
So if I could add something to that, think of it, another way to think of it is what could be restored or what needs to be restored in both our environmental world, but also within our social fabric and our economic systems. So we haven't talked a lot about it, but that's kind of the integrated bottom line. So a good way to think about this is think about something that you see as being broken or that has been degraded in worth over time, and then how could you take that negative and restore it or bring new life to it, so to revitalize it. So maybe if that helps to spur some more thinking around this idea, it's good to think of systems that have been sort of put into decline, and maybe some social systems or economic systems that are sort of in disrepair. And then a way to think of regenerative is what would fixing those problems look like? What would those solutions look like?
So Josie and I and a large group of students and faculty and off-campus professionals at the Institute for the Built Environment at Colorado State have been working to help us think about regeneration and restoration, and we've come up with a framework that's going to guide that way of thinking. And we're going to get you involved with that framework today. We want to use it as a springboard for our thinking. And we recently helped with a project in Cheyenne, and that was a project we'd like to just mention as something that we feel went beyond sustainability and green building. If you look at this, you look at certainly at a place that is vital and refreshed and living in so many different ways. It is a children's discovery center, if you will, at the Cheyenne Botanic Gardens. And if you were with Josie and I 2 years ago, when we walked into this place, it's surrounded by an old wall and a lot of vegetation. And if you looked at the dirt or the soil in the area, this was a maintenance shed with a lot of different maintenance equipment for the Botanic Gardens. And so oil spills and contamination around in an area that was very devoid of anything living. Well, between the idea of the visions of the Botanic Gardens group and then some great team members and community members, we helped to lead a charrette to say, how could this place be something that's alive for children, something that generates new life and new thought? And so as you look at this building, a nice old building built in just after the turn of the last century, now look at its, think of that as a vacant building, and now look at it is a classroom for children to come and learn about all things sustainable and regenerating, including the solar energy on the roof and a vertical axis wind turbine. And if you've been to Cheyenne, you know that that's often turning. And the children are able to see the amount of kilowatts that are being created from the solar and the wind. And then it's not just about the building and the classroom in the building, but obviously this whole environment outside becomes a place for families to learn, to go through trails, to read signage, and to plant and watch things grow and learn about what things grow in different times of year and different times of climate. So this is an idea for us that's an inspiration of a project. It did receive LEED Platinum in the last few months. So it's something that we feel is a springboard for our work into the future. Now Josie's going to talk a little bit about this tool that we have created, and we're going to let you kind of experience in in a brief sort of way today.
Our work on a lot of green building projects and through sort of years of being engaged in this whole notion of being green and being sustainable, we started to think about, I think with sort of a cohort of other leaders in the green industry, what's next? You know, this movement is finally picking up, it's making momentum. There's some progress that's being made, as Rosemarie talked about this morning, and also Kathy. You know, we're starting to see some shifts and some improvements, and those are good. But what does it really take to create transformational change? We see a lot of kind of incremental change, and we started trying to explore this notion of how do you create holistic transformational change. And so it's a small undertaking, but we were up for the task. And we've probably put 5,000 or 6,000 hours of time into developing this tool called Lenses, which has a very clever acronym here. I'm not expecting that any of you will ever remember the full acronym. You can just remember Lenses. But it does stand for Living Environments in Natural, Social, and Economic Systems. And if you break that down just a little bit, living environments. So living implies thriving. And a biologist said to me once, well, aren't all environments living? And I said, well, have you tried going to Mars? That is an environment, right? The facility where the botanic gardens are, well, that was an environment, right? But maybe not a very living or lively environment. So living environments. And then we see the triple bottom line here: natural, social, and economic systems. And they're systems that are all related to each other and connected to one another. So most simply stated, we want to kind of look through these lenses to work together and look at kind of the built environment and not entirely separate the built environment from the natural environment. So a lot of times we think of this separation between human-formed things and then there's nature, which is everything else. But we want to think of them really as they're just different environments, and some of them have more or less influence by human beings and more or less room for the rest of the species on the planet and for other biological systems to happen. But at any rate, we want to look through these lenses to look at what we create and how humans are influencing this place, and ultimately to strengthen and revitalize the social and natural and economic systems that we have here on the planet. So lenses is basically in 3 layers. The first lens is the foundation lens, and the foundation lens is really about who gets invited to the table, and then how do we create shared understanding and to share our understanding of the guiding principles that are around this outer edge, and then also this integrated bottom line. So this is really kind of the fundamentals. How do we get people together and how do we get them working together? And then the next lens is the aspects of place. And you'll see around here things that are fairly familiar, like land and transportation, energy, water. Then we start getting into health and comfort, operations and maintenance, community, education, beauty, financing, and ecosystem services. Some ideas that we may not think of as often when we think of the built environment or of a place. But this is really about how would we define what would be a degenerative practice or a regenerative practice in each one of these. So in energy, for example, John mentioned that a regenerative practice would be to provide more energy than is needed, whereas a degenerative practice would be to take more than is needed. So it's about defining what would degenerative, sustainable, and regenerative look like for each of these different categories. And then finally we have the flows lens. And some of these look very similar to the aspects of place, but the flows lens is really about understanding the flows through a site or a place over time. So historically, what used to be there, what's currently there, and what's it going to be like after we make changes. And if you think about it, flows are really sort of fundamental to defining life. You exist, you are alive because of the flows that are happening through you right now. There's a flow of nutrients, a flow of light, a flow of sound, and all of that is what is characterizing you as being a living being and probably distinguishes you from being among the dead. So this notion of flows is really sort of fundamental to defining and understanding life. And each of these has applications, and we're developing a facilitator's guide and a user's guide. But today what we're going to do is give you a sort of a speed dating version of using lenses. So ultimately, this is a process that should probably take a considerable amount of time, but we're just going to do it as a sort of quick and fun mental exercise. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at how would we regenerate and revitalize this alley. Does anyone just from looking at this know where we're at? Yeah? Yeah, so we've got the alley cat kind of right here. KRFC is here. There's a hair cutting place here. Back over here is the garment district. We've got some more pictures that we'll show you in just a minute. But the key question here is how would you bring new life to this place and to the community by sort of revitalizing this area, maybe making it less degraded and more vital, if you will. So the first step is we're going to do a little tour around the site. So this is sort of the picture you just saw. This is looking south. So you see we've got the Runic Tattoo Shop. This is the Laurel Street Emporium. This is Laurel Street out here. We've got Chipotle up there. Cold Stones back in there somewhere. This is the coffee shop. And then we see a lot of parking, some nice mature trees. This is the eastern looking view. So this is kind of the back of the garment district and the back of Chipotle. And I think this is either it's empty or it's another tattoo shop. We got a lot of parking in the center. Looking west, we see the alley cat and some dude on his motorcycle. He's not a permanent fixture there. So he's a flow through this site, right? And then this is the central view. So what Brian's passing out now is a little bit of a, it's both sort of the pictures that I just showed you, plus it's the floor plan, if you will, sort of the floor plan of the alley or the site plan, and then sort of a lenses cheat sheet. So the first thing that we want you to do in this activity is to close your eyes for a moment, if you will. And I just want you to imagine your favorite public space. Imagine somewhere that you've been that you think embodies a vital, thriving, beautiful public space. So you don't get to go to your favorite place in Rocky National Park for this exercise. It's sort of a public space, but we're thinking a little more urban here. What does it smell like? What does it sound like?
What are the flows that go through that place? The people, the smells, the sounds, the music.
And we would like you to share a little bit about what you envisioned.
You could tell us where the place is if you'd like, but what was it that made it vital for you? John?
A place that doesn't have a front and a back. So in many places we see commercial areas, in this case this one, where everything's behind the scenes, it's back and sort of a two-sided space.
Were you thinking of a certain place?
I was thinking of a neighborhood in Berkeley that was redeveloped that has a street-facing front side, but the back sides are just as interesting as the front side.
Okay, so there's really not a back.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Kat?
Natural shade.
Okay, so natural shade.
Yeah.
Okay, are you thinking of a certain place?
Oak Street Plaza.
Okay, so a nice place in downtown Fort Collins. Did you have one also?
Yeah, waterfall or stream.
Okay. Oh, get some water in there and some moving water. Are you thinking of a certain place?
Where I take my dog walking every night. It's pretty peaceful out there. So.
And where is that?
It's in Longmont, the little pond in Longmont.
Okay, you don't want to tell us all because you don't want everyone to go there. Yeah, okay, all right. Okay. Anybody else have a certain place they mentioned? Rosemarie?
So I was thinking one in Copenhagen where they had like outside patio, and then they had like little airplane blankets on the chairs so you could sit outside even if it's a little cold. No one apparently steals them, and all the restaurants had them.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Very nice. Okay, so adding to the comfort in a colder place. Yes?
I
I also envisioned Oak Street Plaza with the water fountains and all of the little kids playing.
Oh, nice.
The Tuesday afternoon concerts with the nice music near.
Oh, wonderful. All right, so we got the music in there, we got the moving water, and we got all the moving children in there. Parents just kind of watching and smiling and enjoying it. Good.
The North End in Boston, there was all the smells of Italian food and all the restaurants that there's the owners of the restaurants sitting outside at tables or playing chess or whatever, but there's all the wonderful smell of foods and the people walking through the...
Wonderful. So North Boston and the smells, all the great foods, kind of just a real attractive environment for everyone. Good place to be. Okay, this is great. Nice brainstorming that you all did to kind of get this exercise started. This is a good way to brainstorm and envision when you think of a place that's the best it can be and your favorite place. Now let's turn that same energy into this place. And so let's begin to think about how that works. Now, using lenses as a springboard or a prompt for you to think of ideas. You already have some ideas. If we were to do a great job redesigning and creating a living environment in this alley and parking courtyard, what types of people should be involved in this? So now let's think about creating the great team for this. What types of people need to be there? Rosemary. Good. Okay, so someone that has some different disabilities, making sure that we make this so it is universally designed and accessible. Okay, let's make sure children have their ideas into this place. Great. The business owners in the area, maybe even on the site, or even maybe not just on the site, but let's get the business community involved. Great. Okay, let's see how the bicyclists would want to get their ideas in there, as well as pedestrians. Kat, this is close to the Colorado State campus, so it's going to be used. They're going to be one of the groups that'll be there, so let's get university involvement. Good. Okay, let's get an architect, maybe landscape architect, urban planner type of person, other designers. Good. Good, so let's think about the utilities and the infrastructure needed for waste and water and gas and electricity and heating and cooling and so on. So good, we need all of that in there. John?
Somebody that understands stormwater drainage.
Yes. Okay, for our infrequent but sometimes large storms, we better know how to deal with that water. And maybe we can do some great things with the water at the same time. Stacy? Exactly. So the flows that we're talking about, the flows of those materials that are going to make those businesses successful, we need to consider the service flow in and out of those. Very good.
So, and let me add another train of thinking into this. So what about community organizations? So who in this community could benefit? If we were going to take this place and we're going to bring life into it, which groups, which people would we engage? Are there students at Centennial High School who might be interested in doing an art project here? Or are there some other nonprofits that you know of that might be good to engage in this work? So let's think of maybe sort of community partners or sort of spreading some of the benefit further out. Who else could we engage in that way?
So now specifically, we talked about the university, but specifically there are groups at CSU, so the landscape architecture department, for instance, and Rosemary said the sustainability student group at the university. Good. Okay, so Deb has a few thoughts. Let's make sure we get the transportation thought and some experts in transportation, and also the idea of housing, which if we look at that site, there's very little, if any, housing within that courtyard area that you can see. So Deb's idea is maybe some new uses could happen, and then you need some new people in there to help us with that. John? So we're talking about a large transportation area, the Mason Street corridor, and the people that are working on the master plan of that and involved, they want to know that here's a node that people might be going back and forth, and so let's have their engagement. Very good. So various different youth groups soccer, and so on. So this becomes a place for families and for youth gatherings. Good. Yeah, the real estate community, looking at talking about different business owners and what are opportunities and what they think are underutilized or undertapped markets. Homeless advocacy groups. Good. That might tie back into Deb's idea. Downtown Business Association. This is close to them, and so what kind of partnerships could they create on some of their successful events? Okay, well, if I spent more time with you, we'd come up with a few others that would be added. For instance, who's going to build or rebuild? So let's get the construction professionals in as part of this. And then who's going to operate and maintain? Let's make sure they're part of this as well. All right, so we did a nice job on the first part, what people or organizations could be involved. Now we'd like you to kind of use the lenses tool as a prompt. So you kind of use the first layer just now because we see the first lens being something that is, who is that team and how do you bring that team together and how do you get common understanding among that team? That's what those guiding principles are on the foundation lens. Now let's start to think about what are the main ideas that could come out using the lenses to make sure we're thinking fully. Yeah. Okay.
So what we'd like you to do is just within your groups, each of you has a little sheet with the lenses on them. If you want to, as a group, pick 1 to 3 aspects on that center lens and talk about how you could regenerate that aspect. So what would be regenerative practices for this place that you could do? And we're going to give you just a few. How are we doing on time?
We have 20 minutes.
Okay, so probably just about 5 minutes, so it's going to be pretty rapid fire. But pick just 1 to 3 of those aspects and then think about regenerative practices related to that aspect.
Okay, so the middle lens, the aspect lens, just a few ideas, and then we'll have you report out.
And so have someone jot them down for your group.
So I'd like each group what we'd like you to report out to us quickly is what were the aspects you looked at, and give us a couple of the ideas that sprang out of your focus on some of those ideas. So Josie and I will record those. We okay? Yeah, I just wondered. So tell us what a couple aspects you focused on and a couple ideas, Stacy.
Okay, I'm just going to pick maybe the one that we talked about the most was operations and maintenance, and the idea of getting services that businesses need into and out of the space. Probably the most radical and innovative idea, but it's really exciting, would be how much underground could you do? How much of the stuff could you actually bury underground? Like, would there be a way to remove your compost or your trash from your business through some kind of underground system, so you wouldn't have to be trying to roll your trash can of food waste down a beautiful brick alleyway to get to the central spot? One spilled trash can and you got a big stain, it's a big mess. Anyway, just an interesting challenge. And maybe also with the parking, it'd be nice to eliminate the parking, but you probably meet some resistance from business owners believing that if I reduce my parking, I'm going to reduce my customers. But if you increase the public space and a nice public eating area, you got 6 or 7 restaurants right there to share some public eating space. It's looking at what they gain instead of what they lose by kind of adding value to the space around their business that they may not have operational control over now, but you're actually providing an economic incentive to them by enhancing the surrounding public space.
Great.
I'll leave it at that.
A comment from, I forget your name already? Wayne. From Wayne, kind of triggered some thoughts on our, and his comment was it's a closed space. And so we started thinking about creating some portals, some access that might come from different directions, and that might help invite people into that area. We also kind of debated or talked a little bit about the different interests, and really up front having to define what are the uses we're after. You have uses that the businesses are going to currently have or have a stakeholder position in. as well as visitors. And I was thinking of right now, if you don't know about it, you're going to walk down and maybe look down that alley, and you're not going to walk down there. You're going to walk down the sidewalk and go around or something. But how do we combine some additional uses from what is there now? It's kind of where we focused.
Good. Did you have another aspect or idea besides the portals?
Well, we were linking it with, we kind of started with community education and beauty, but ended up focusing more on the community aspects of really defining how this space and its relationship then with the next sort of boundary or the next group of spaces around it.
Okay, well, first, Disneyland does do all their garbage underground, so it has been done. And in Stockholm, they do it too, and they burn it, and then the heat melts all the snow on the sidewalks. So it's not too out there.
I can add to John's comments. We were most concerned about the access and the safety with all of the students and the pedestrians walking through, and how can you make it very inviting, but also have safe access. And we were thinking, more like, thinking of along the lines of 16th Street Mall or Pearl Street. How can you make it inviting but safe too?
And then our other thing was removing some of the permeable material and using that the kind of rickrack where grass grows through the pavers, and so it looks a little more green and it's better for stormwater.
I guess we thought more like on a big scale, like totally redoing it, maybe making it more of an urban park and adding some water features and some natural grass and more just so people from the community can go out down and enjoy a space. And it may disrupt some of the businesses, but it sounds like right now there aren't a lot of businesses that are thriving in that area, so maybe you can consider moving them into one building or something where you might entice more businesses to actually come and be tenants in this area. So.
Great, thank you. So now we're starting to see notions of economic revitalization, sort of some ecological and social components. So we're starting to see kind of it all coming together a little bit. What about here? I'll come to you.
Okay, so we selected education and energy. And in education, we focused on regeneration and kind of break that down into 3 topics. So the first one would be education by education stakeholders. So that would be, with CSU helping with recreating the space, help from various department and students groups about the space. Then the second one under education would be then each of the local businesses provides education about what they're doing to regenerate or educate. And then the third one was to educate about education, so to provide regenerative education within the space. So that might be performing artists who would go in and speak and about, so maybe involving the CSU Performing Arts Group, the gardens at Spring Creek, the rain gardens, and then we got into permeable pavers, which
that's a popular idea today.
Not sure why. So that was kind of our thing on education. I thought it was kind of cool because we involved the stakeholders who are educators like CSU. We then have the local businesses doing education to the community about what they're doing, and then we finally have education about the value of education. So that was kind of neat. So with regard, the second one was energy, and in generation and regeneration, we were thinking solar panels. So that's the generation aspect. Then monitoring and reducing energy use, which would teach others how to conserve energy, which then regenerates, because whatever solar cells are generating, by reducing, then they are actually putting back more into the environment than is consumed by the businesses.
Great thoughts.
Oh, and then the last one more. The last one was educating. The last piece about energy was to have audience participation, and that was to get people to get on a bicycle and pedal the bike to generate electricity and see how hard it is to light a light bulb.
Great ideas. Well, I'm ready to do this. Are you guys are you all on board? Let's go find some financing and make this happen, right?
Yeah, so, we just spent about 40 minutes in this exercise. We introduced the idea, showed you some things about a potential site. You then brainstormed and you used the lenses tool to help you as a springboard. And then we just hit on, or you just hit on, 7 of the different aspects. And there are more, you know, there's 12 or more aspects that and each of these could take more time. But you can see in 40 minutes the ideas that were generated about how to create a place that could be more on the order of a living environment. So we wanted to give you this idea of how a tool could help spur some thought to go beyond something that's sustainable. We had lofty goals today. We might use this into the future, and in a longer sense, we might use this project. But we wanted you to see how that both the generation of a tool that we're creating, as well as the mindset shift of let's not do something less bad, let's do something that's wholly good and regenerating for the future, could really make a difference for an environment, whether that be a building or a space within a building, or in this case, a whole city block or part of a city block. So we can use this on different levels. Our intention with the tool within the next year is to begin to try it out on some pilot projects in northern Colorado, and then we hope other places on the planet would try it out as a potential tool as well. Typically, in a charrette sort of fashion like this, we might take a whole day, or at least a number of hours, or we might take a couple days. And we envision this framework being something that used not just at the start of a project, but along the way as well. You know, we asked you, who would we want to involve? Who are the stakeholders? And we'd want to make sure that we got stakeholder infused events like this to make sure all the ideas come out. Let's not forget about something, get the thing built and created, and then say, oh, we didn't think about that aspect. But instead, let's have it thought about. So early on, this idea can work. During construction, this idea could actually work. Let's make sure we're taking into account all the things, the ideas we had. And then, during the life of the place, the project, the court, how is it working? And how could it continue to work? And how does it regenerate? So we don't see this as just a brainstorming tool at the start, but something that could be there for the life of the project. After all, it does need to have good life over time.
Well, yeah, and that life over time, I mean, most of us already work in existing places, right? So this isn't just something that can be used for a new project. This is an existing space. And it's not a hard leap, I don't think, to take this idea and think about what your existing space is, right? So it may have very different characteristics than the one that you worked on today, but your organization, the people you work with, your home, all of that could benefit by kind of taking these ideas and thinking about them in kind of an expansive and inclusive way. And when you start having different vocabulary to say, what would bring new life? What would support the kind of change that we're hoping to achieve? Those are the kinds of questions and ultimately the kinds of sort of self-based solutions that we think lenses can help you provide. So it can work if you want to, you know, remodel your kitchen, or if you want to recreate a plaza, or if you want to look at how your business or organization can be working towards taking that next level step, that sort of step towards transformation, and how could we become really kind of wholly good in what we're doing. So we hope that this gives you at least a little bit of a flavor for what we've been working on developing and how it might be used in real world applications. We hope that you're able to sort of take that next quantum leap and think about it, how it could potentially relate to what you're doing. And if you think you might be ready to start applying it on something, we're ready to start trying it out more and more. So please let us know.
In the last minute or two, if there's any comments or questions that anyone has for us about the idea of regeneration or about how you apply it on projects.
So have you worked with the DDA? Because I mean, they have these 2 alley projects going on, and they did put art in it. They did a paver about recycling, one of them, the Montezuma one. But I mean, it would be great because, you know, they are trying to think about certain things. You know, they did enclosures, and the enclosures are small, and so you can't do composting in them. So, I mean, it'd be nice if you guys take them as a...
That could be a good potential pilot project, is working with the DDA on some of their envisioned, really regeneration is what they're searching for, if you think about it as well. So that's a good suggestion, Rosemary. Josie and I think, are overall optimistic people and thinking there is a better future out there. A lot of people have gloom and doom, and while we understand that there are a lot of things to be gloomy about, there's also a lot of things to be hopeful about. And when you think about giving new life and regenerating something, that's really what we're saying. And so that starts now if it hasn't already started. Another comment?
Well, I think what's neat about this program is that it is, your theme of green sometimes is associated, at least with people that I've dealt with, is pain. I got to cut back on this. Yeah. It's painful. There's dishonorable practices in green to sell products. This, what you've created, helps create an education about the benefits derived from green. So if this was set up and created successfully, you can create people who believe in green by educating them about green.
Great, great. I appreciate that comment. And actually, you know, beyond green, but it's showing us the good attributes of something that is green. What can we take from the green movement, but then also foster some new ideas beyond that?